everybody. The Department of Public Works and Government Services Canada, in its role as Receiver General, is responsible for the management and safeguarding of all federal government money. These funds, which are used in the disbursement of all Government of Canada expenditures, investments, and transfers, are held in the Consolidated Revenue Fund at the Bank of Canada. Funds are collected through taxation, revenue, and borrowing. There are also transactions with foreign governments and the IMF. Although borrowing by the federal government is not the same as you or I would borrow. When the federal government runs a budget deficit, to make up the shortfall, it issues securities, bonds, and treasury bills. When securities are first issued by the government, the Bank of Canada and commercial banks create new money the same way a commercial bank does when issuing a loan to you or me. The Bank of Canada also creates new money when purchasing securities from the secondary market. And this is what is called quantitative easing. However, the Bank of Canada words it this way. The Bank of Canada buys Government of Canada bonds on the secondary market primarily from financial institutions, and in exchange, we create settlement balances for those financial institutions. The daily inflows, outflows, and cash balances in the CRF are forecast by analysts in the Securities Department at the Bank of Canada. The main priority in managing these balances is to ensure the government has sufficient cash to meet its daily needs. The federal government raises funds in three ways: taxation, revenue from its crown corporations, and by issuing securities. The proceeds from all three of these methods enters the CRF, where a daily cash balance is maintained to meet the needs of government spending. Money must be in the CRF before the federal government can spend. I've taken a random day, December 2nd, 2020, to illustrate the inflows, outflows, and the government's cash balance. Starting with the inflows, I would like to focus on the bold text. The financial institution number identifies the institution. In this case, number 0327 represents State Street, an authorized foreign bank. Next is the date of the transaction, December 2nd, 2020. Then is the deposit transaction type code. This identifies the type of deposit entering the CRF. And in this case, CSA represents Credit Support Annex, which is usually securities as guaranteed collateral for derivative trades. The last one is the deposit amount. As we move down the page, let's look at some of the other deposit transaction type codes. The next one is RIVT, which stands for Return Direct Deposit as a Bank Draft. Next is CBPM, the Government Borrowing Program, which is the receipt of funds returned by Canadian Crown corporations through the Crown Borrowing Program. Then we have CAD, Concentrator Account Deposits. Concentrator accounts were established at commercial banks for several government programs to collect payments from the public, such as income tax and commodity tax payments for the Canada Revenue Agency. Bulk payments related to specific programs are transferred daily using the large value transfer system from the commercial banks to the Bank of Canada for deposit to the CRF account. Then we have PAD, pre-authorized debit deposits, and so on. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Moving to the end of this business day, The financial institution number 0177 represents the Bank of Canada, which created 4.9 billion digital dollars in exchange for newly issued marketable bonds. In public discourse, this transaction is always referred to as a purchase, whereas in documentation provided by the Bank of Canada, they more accurately refer to it as an acquisition. PLINT refers to interest paid by the Bank of Canada on the Prudential Liquidity Fund for the CRF. RGINT refers to the interest paid on the RG's operating account by the Bank of Canada to the CRF. Both the PLF and the Receiver General's operating account are calculated and forwarded to the CRF daily. The Prudential Liquidity Fund was created in 2011 to safeguard the ability of the Receiver General to meet payment obligations in situations where normal access to funding markets may be disrupted or delayed. In addition, according to the data, February 29th, 2012 was when the Bank of Canada first paid interest on the PLF. However, it wasn't until July 23rd, 2015 that the fund became visible in the data with the government's daily cash balance. A portion of the PLF is held as a $20 billion deposit with the Bank of Canada. I will be very brief with the outflows. Instead of a deposit transaction type code, the column has a redemption transaction type code. In place of the deposit amount, it has a redemption amount. In other words, the amount paid out. The first RTTC is certs, which means people are cashing in their Canada Savings Bond paper certificates. PCND means government checks redeemed at and processed by a financial institution and claimed on the next business day. DFT means direct deposit payments processed by a financial institution. Coincidentally, the first 11 transactions on the ledger are done by the bank that I have all my accounts with, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, 0010. The chart that you now see illustrates the cash flows in and out of the CRF. It was created using Government of Canada data and correspondence with the Bank of Canada and the Department of Finance. In the CRF, sometimes outflows may exceed inflows. That is why the Receiver General always maintains a positive cash balance to ensure that payments are made. In conclusion, money creation by the Bank of Canada during securities purchases occurs before entering the CRF. In addition to federal taxes paid through the banking system, revenue gained from crown corporations, money from foreign banks, and the IMF, they comprise all the deposits in the CRF. From there, these funds are used to finance program payments or extinguish obligations due.